Hello, the pleasure is mine and the privilege is yours today
Yeah.
to share a story with you, a story of my becoming and meeting an outstanding human being in our community.
Thank
It all, it all started with my son Axel telling me about his stretching yoga experience.
you.
And he has been inviting me a couple of days, a couple of times, and for a reason or another, my schedule did not match. And one afternoon, I remember it was a Friday afternoon. He said, "Oh, Dad, Are you coming?" And I said, "Okay, I'll be coming. I will be coming to watch you." And he moved his way, and I had a couple of things to put an end to, and I got there 10 minutes behind the schedule.
Mhm.
I parked in the garage. Then I thought, like judo or jujutsu that he's also doing, I will get into the room and sat and quietly. The atmosphere was totally different. First, the light was off, serene music was playing, and all things I remember is a couple of hands giving me a hug and inviting me to be in. I said, no, I was not prepared for that. And that was my meeting with yoga instructor, Madame Bianca Procter. Welcome to
Thank you.
this interview, to that conversation. My name is Gouzevel Jean-Francois, and this is with pleasure that we are having this conversation. How are you doing, Bianca?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Roosevelt. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be invited on your podcast. Usually I'm on the other side of the interview. Like usually
How do you feel being on the other side?
it feels nice. It's very new. Like this is like the first time that someone has actually invited me onto their podcast. So it's it's genuinely like such a pleasure and such an honor.
So the pleasure is mine. Why do you feel that good this morning?
Yoga. Honestly, I really do try to start my days with gratitude, even if it's like for 5 minutes. When I wake up, I don't go on my phone for like the first 30 minutes. I try my best to just like lay there and list out the things that I'm grateful for, whether it be like my house, my bed, my family, my friends, the people that come to my classes, just anything in my life that I can think of that I'm just so grateful for. And it really sets the tone for just having an amazing day and starting off with positive energy.
Positive energy, but this has started sometime, someday. And I know some people might say, okay, I understand. I've been listening to people doing yoga for sometimes what it is, but there is nothing without the person. Let's start with you. Tell us your story, who you are, what you do, and if there is something that we might learn, it will start with your name. Why Bianca?
So I started yoga and meditation when I was 14. At the time, I was very, I guess you could say, depressed or just very sad. I was in a really dark place. It was like I had thoughts that 14-year-olds should not have because of like what happened previously with my parents. They got divorced, and it was just like it was a very traumatic experience all in all, and I didn't really know how to navigate it. Um, I used to be a dancer, and that in itself was challenging for me because I didn't have the body type to be a dancer. I didn't have super thin, long legs. I wasn't super skinny. And I tried to keep up with the other girls, but it never really seemed like what I was doing was good enough. And it was hard for me to kind of make friends with the other dancers. So I quit and I didn't know what to do from there. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start going to the gym and try to get my fitness up because I want to improve my body. From there, I went to a yoga class and I fell in love with it because I was able to explore my body without being competitive and without having to worry about anybody else. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually kind of good at this. And it's
Mm.
It was the
So that means the yoga environment was totally different from the dance environment, where you have to put anything that you have to put an ensemble. That means together for a choreography, while yoga is that everything is inside and you have to bring it outside. That is what I understand from that part of the story.
Yes, exactly. Like you don't have to worry about being better than your neighbor or trying to impress anyone because the practice is so individual for your body and for what you need. I also grew up playing tennis. So like I played tennis competitively, and that in itself was very challenging for me because I'm not a super competitive person. I like when everyone wins. Like I'm not the type of person that's like I want to win, like I want to be on top.
Hmm.
I'm the type of person that, or I strive to be the type of person that makes sure that everyone gets a little piece of cake and everyone wins and everyone rises together. So
Hmm.
and it's like that was also very challenging because I had to go through games and things like that, and it kind of whittled away at my self-worth because I would, when I was practicing, I was really good. Like I was one of the best players in my team. But
Hmm.
then when it came to competition, I like just all of that went away, and I
Mm.
didn't know how to like I I I didn't really win, in all honesty. I did so many competitions, but every single one I didn't win. So what my reality was proving to me was that I wasn't good at what I wanted to do. And then
Hmm.
it proved that as well. Proved
So that stamina, that means you don't find your energy in competing, you find your energy in harmony. Can I say that?
yeah.
Once again, my conversation today is with Bianca Procter. I will say that I met Bianca through yoga practice, and today she's telling us her story, starting with her being first a dancer and tennis player, and now you move to training, going to gym. But you are very young. You mentioned 14 going to the gym. Usually, I don't see young folks at this age at the gym. What was it like for you?
It was very strange at first because I was trying to navigate my way around the gym. I was learning the equipment. I was like watching YouTube videos to get familiar with different exercises and things like that. And through that, I actually learned how to train myself, and I was able to train friends and family, and people would come to me and they would come with me to the gym so that way I would train them. But
Hmm.
while developing that, I was also developing my yoga. And I eventually graduated from doing yoga at a gym to going to a studio, and I would go to a studio religiously. I would go every day or almost every day. Sometimes I would do 2 classes back to back, and they were hot yoga classes. So my practice is built on hot yoga. And
What
I
does that mean, hot yoga? I understand hot,
like,
I understand yoga. I want to make sure that I understand both concepts together. But I understand also we're in South Florida. Being hot means 100 degrees and plus.
yeah, so you're in a room basically, and they have heaters on. So the heaters make the room anywhere from like 96 to
Mm,
102 degrees.
hmm.
So I loved it because it challenged me, but it I will say there are a little bit of downfalls. If you are wanting to try hot yoga, know that to take it a little slower because a um there is a possibility to overstretch because your muscles are heated, as
Hmm.
well as make sure that you're breathing correctly because it's very easy to lose your breath and to almost feel like you're going to pass out. So
Mm.
if you go to a hot yoga class, just be mindful of your body. So
So if you are listening or if you are following us today, I invite you to go to Bianca Instagram. This is where I discover a couple of your content, and as well, I understand you have your own podcast, you have your own website that I will give you time to mention, biancaprocter.com, and as well your ZenB, uh, just to make sure that our fellows just go there to see exactly the kind of work that you are doing. Now, how do you move from you to others? What I mean by this is that you started your own journey with physical training. Now you become a trainer. How did you how did you do that transition?
So as I said, I was going to classes religiously, and it wasn't until my mom who said, you'd be a really good yoga teacher. Like you know the poses already, you know the practice very well without any training. Why don't you get your certification to be a teacher? Because it could be a really good job for you while you go through college. Just instead
Mhm.
of having a minimum wage job, you could work at a studio and be a teacher and something that you really love. And I was resistant to it at first because I want to say I was 16, 17 at the time. I was resistant to it at first, and I was kind of like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. No, I don't know any teachers that are 17 or my age. That's weird. One that I knew that was a teacher, 25 and up. So
Mhm.
very, and I thought that people wouldn't be open to having a very young teacher. So I was resistant to it at first, and she eventually convinced me. I did my first teacher training, and my first one was way too intense for me. I ended up leaving halfway because it was a lot. It was a beautiful experience, and the
Mhm.
place now I would be able to handle it. But where I was at the time, 17 years old, it was way too intense. The only other person that the other youngest person that was in that training was 26, and it was an 8-week training. I had to give my weekends to them. Like I could not leave the ashram because it was an ashram. I could not leave the ashram for 8 weeks, and I was taking AP classes in high school.
Mm.
My birthday was coming up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be giving 8 weeks of my life dedicated to this. And so, like I said, at the place I'm in now, I could handle it. But back then it was way too much. So I did my second teacher training. I ended up completing that. I got certified, and there was like these promises that I was going to get hired as a yoga teacher and all this stuff. It didn't end up happening because the teacher that I did my training with, she ended up having a falling out with the studio owner. So it would turn into like this whole mess where we were promised to have a job by the end of it, and it never happened. So for about a year I didn't.
Which was a good thing for you, it seems.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of different things on my path that at the time didn't work out, and I didn't understand why, but I'm grateful that they did now.
Mm.
So
Mm.
as I as I was kind of navigating everything, for the first year of having my certification, I only taught to my friends and family. I didn't really expand past that. And I was just kind of by myself. Like, no one knew I was really certified. I didn't really talk about it because like I had said, I said that no one is going to want to listen to an 18-year-old teacher. You know, no one is going to want to follow me because I'm so young and they're not going to take me seriously. So I
Mhm.
had limiting belief in my head. So after about a year, I said to myself, I was like, I have my certification. And at this point, I was a waitress at a restaurant. So I had my certification, and I said to myself, I have my yoga teacher certification. Why am I not using it? Why am I at this minimum wage job that I don't enjoy when I could be doing something that I really, really love? And then on top of that, if I if I see someone else living my dream and living what I want to do, I'm going to be resentful of myself for not actually going for it. So I, at that point, I was applying to every studio in the area, every studio that I could find. I was trying to make relationships. I was trying to make connections. The first studio that I really kind of made that connection with, they brought me on, but not as a teacher. They brought me on as like a front desk training and also as daycare. So I was taking care of like the little kids with the promise that I would eventually move into being a yoga teacher. They didn't pay me for the time that I was there. They
So
were
you
paying,
were like an intern. Like
yeah,
you're that's what companies are doing today. And I'm so glad you bring this. And I always tell young folks, pay attention. Some people tell you that you are in training and you're doing free labor.
exactly. Yes, that's what ended up happening. They were paying me in yoga classes, which is not a form of payment. It's like I cannot eat off of yoga classes.
That's right.
What ended up happening was I was training for front desk, and the owner, she told me, you're not ready to teach. You're not ready to teach because you say the word like too much. You're not ready to be a teacher. And so that kind of hurt me because
Hmm.
I said to myself, I have my certification, I have the knowledge, I just need a chance.
Hmm.
So I ended up leaving that and kind of throwing it to the wind. I kept applying, I kept trying to make connections with other studios and work at different gyms and things like that. And there were so many times where I got in for the interview and then just things happened and they were making me do the runaround, all that stuff. It wasn't until I applied to UFIT that they hired me on the spot and they were like, you are really good at what you do. And they were able to,
Mm.
they were recognizing that I was good at the craft and that I have a love for it. They hired me on the spot, but I didn't get classes until probably like 6 to 7 months later because I was subbing for a lot of classes. So anytime a yoga teacher was out, they would call a sub to come
Hmm.
lead the class. I was driving everywhere that summer. That summer,
Hmm.
I was driving to Miami, I was driving to Hialeah, I was driving to Deerfield, I was driving to Weston, I was driving to Miramar, I was driving to Dania. I was going everywhere in the South Florida area. I was driving to Biscayne, everywhere. Even if the drive was 40 minutes plus, I was still going because it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to teach. I
Yes,
just
at that moment you wanted to have that experience under your belt,
Mhm.
and you don't mind. This is a way of striving for what you are searching, and this is hey, you need to hustle to get what you are looking for.
Exactly. And so every opportunity I would be checking the little thing online that would tell us if there was a class that needed to be subbing or subbed. And any opportunity that I would get, I would always apply for it. No matter how far it was, I just wanted to teach. And so eventually they started to like me, they started to get to know me, and I got my own classes. And I was able to stay there for around 2 years,
Hmm.
which is big because every job that I've ever had, I've never lasted there more than 6 months because I do not.
Hmm.
The first 2 years was a big thing for me. And so I ended up developing a following, I guess you could say, because people would religiously come to my classes and I would get told by my supervisors or by my bosses, you could say, that my classes were the most popular classes in those locations. And
Hmm.
it got to a point where if you didn't get there on time, they would tell you that you have to leave and that you
Mm.
could not, it was filled. I would have anywhere from 20 like to 30 people in a class.
Wow.
And I was every class, specifically at one location. So that was amazing. It was,
And the gym owner was making the profit
yeah,
from this.
exactly. So you can imagine what I charge now for a class is $18. So you can imagine
Hmm.
if 20, 30 people in a class, that is a good chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was working under them, I was only getting $20 for the whole class.
Yes, you
So,
didn't get the platform. It was
mhm,
not your platform. You were using their platform. They have the people following them, but you were providing the service.
mhm,
And for you, maybe quote unquote $20 an hour, it looks better than what you were, in my mind, better
mhm.
than what you were making in the restaurant.
Oh yeah.
But at the end, when you do 30 by 20, if my math is correct, that will be $600 that you get 20 out of 600. And it
Hmm.
seems to me you can do math as well,
Yeah.
besides yoga.
So I realized like I get out of here because I'm not getting compensated the way that I would like to. I have the experience under my belt. Now it's time to move into a studio. And there was this one studio that I applied to, and I was in contact with them for about a year or two. And I was trying to work with them for about 4 years. But they had an audition. I jumped on it. I drove all the way to Deerfield to audition. There were other yoga teachers. There was about 200 teachers that applied in total. And only about, I want to say, 30 of them were selected. And I was one of them that was selected.
Wow.
So I was like,
One
wow.
out of 200.
hmm And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I feel good in this. And the owner, she said, you guys are not selected because you have the most experience or because you have the most knowledge. You guys are selected because you have presence. And that is the most important part of being a yoga teacher, is having presence. Or even if you're a speaker, having presence and having the ability to have people listen to you and what you're saying. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, this is the first time I'm ever hearing about this. Like, thank you.
Mm.
And so what ended up happening was I went through the training, I auditioned several times, and I kept auditioning, like, because there was a how do you say, a system in
Mm-hmm.
place,
Mm-hmm.
or you get under the brand name as a teacher, you have to go through a certain training and you have to pass different tests,
Mm-hmm.
not just, oh, you get hired on the spot. So I studied the flows that they gave us. I studied the way in which the teachers would teach, and they really liked me to the point where they gave me a free month to really take advantage and learn the flow and learn everything that was the brand name. And
Mm-hmm.
I was there every single day for a month. I was taking 2 classes a day, learning how the teachers spoke, how they cued things, the way the flow was. And to this day, the flow is ingrained in my head because
Mm-hmm.
of how much I studied it.
So one thing that I learned from that, Bianca, is that not only you have the dream, you know why you are doing this, because
Mm-hmm,
it is in your journey, starting with first dancing that you don't like, playing
mm-hmm.
tennis that you don't like, then you discover what you like. That's
Yes.
number one. When you discover it, now you know this is something that you are gifted, that you have some abilities. Now you put the hours. This is the 10,000 hours that some amazing authors have said. When you discover, first you need to discover why,
Mm-hmm.
your purpose, as you said. And when you discover it, now you need to put the hours to become great and excellent at your craft. That's
Yeah.
what I'm learning from you this morning.
Yes. Thank you. So I went through the training and all that stuff, and then the pandemic hit. When
Mm,
the pandemic hit, I lost contact with them, and they because they were dealing with things internally in their business, because everyone was affected by the pandemic. And so I don't blame them at all. I still
mhm,
contact. So every month I would send an email to the owner, to the to like the group of people that were at the top of the business. I would keep in contact with them and make sure that I sent them an email, so that way they remembered me, and that way they would keep me in mind when the pandemic was over. As well as that time I lost my job at UFIT because I was let go, and I just didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, how can I make this situation a positive one? It just so happened that one of my friends who was dating a boy at this time, they're no longer dating, but she was dating at the time, and he had a friend who recently opened up a gym, and that's the gym that I teach at now. So the way in which we had it set up, I went to go talk to him, and he said that he doesn't want me to be an employee. Like, I can use the space and kind of create my business there as my own, and just I would rent out the space and use it, and he would not really be a part of the process of it. And I was
That's
like,
a lot better.
I was like, yeah, that's amazing. That's exactly what I've wanted, and that's what I've been looking for. So I started teaching classes there. I started promoting it and getting people to come to the gym. And at the beginning, it was a huge success because I was getting people filled in and people DMing me and wanting to come and all that stuff. So fast forward to a few months later, where I went to go talk to the owner of the yoga studio that I was trying to work at. And I went to one of her classes. I went to go talk to her, and I invited her on my podcast several times. It never happening because just, I guess, time restrictions or whatever. But I really did try to keep that relationship alive. And to this day, I still talk to her because I respect her for what she does and what she's built. I really do admire her as a businesswoman and as a yoga teacher. So there's nothing but love there for her. And so they still wanted me to audition again. They wanted me to and they said, you're almost there. Just send in a video of you auditioning, and you're on our mind for our new location that is, I'm not lying to you, 5 minutes from my house. The perfect setup. It was the perfect setup. It was 5 minutes from my house. It was a brand new, beautiful location. And I was one of the teachers that they had in mind to bring on to that studio. And so I auditioned, whatever, all this stuff. Long story short, I ended up walking away from it because I felt like if I stayed with them, my practice would be molded to what they wanted instead of what I wanted. So I said,
and one thing you said, I read on your Instagram prior, is that your purpose is to go beyond the yoga instructor. You want to be remembered more than just a yoga teacher. And that's why I would like, if you are listening to this podcast on our conversation with Roosevelt JEAN-FRANCOIS, or if you are watching this video, I invite you to go to Instagram and move. If I have your permission, I will share my screen just to make sure that we share some content from your social media with our followership today. Because one thing that I have observed is that ability that you have to first go to Instagram, you go to zenb.hive. Do I pronounce it well?
yes, perfect.
zenb.hive, and here you can go as you read, you listen, and you will see everything Bianca's doing besides. But I will start with the beginning of how you define yourself. You define yourself first. You invite us to tap into our bodies, innate wisdom through movement, the flow. And you mentioned it earlier that the flow is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Let's start with this. What does that mean, the flow?
The flow means that it means yoga, it means breath work, it means just having that life force move through you. That's why I don't really like to define myself as just a yoga teacher, because it's helping to get that movement of energy back into your body through whether it be dance, whether it be, like I said, breath work, whether it be yoga. I just specifically teach it through yoga, meditation, and Reiki, energy healing. But there are so many other ways for you to bring in that flow of life back into your body. So many times we are our memories, our traumas, everything gets stuck in our bodies. Our bodies are kind of like a hard drive of everything that we've experienced in life, and even things that maybe our ancestors experienced in life, that if they didn't heal, it gets passed on to us through DNA. That's why I believe that healing is one of the most beautiful and important things that you can choose to do in your life, because not only are you healing yourself, you're also healing your ancestors and also healing your descendants, and one that you come across as well. Just, it's a ripple effect.
I like the way you put it. That means you are like a reservoir of all that happens through your ancestors, and also that happens to you. So you receive them and you keep them. And now that flow will help you to get rid of what you don't want. So let's start with breathing.
Okay.
Why breathing is so important? Because I see that that you say if you can breathe, you can do it.
Breathing is so important because breathing is our life force. If most people do not know how to properly breathe, and that is because the proper breath is a diaphragmatic breath. You're bringing your breath into your diaphragm, into your belly, which if you look at a child, if you look at a small child, they kind of always are walking around with their belly sticking out. And they're not yet conditioned to what society says, that we need to suck in and that we need to wear tight clothes and look a certain way. When that happens, a lot of the times people's breathing just gets stuck in their lungs. So they only start to bring the breath into their lungs, and they are not really using their diaphragm, meaning that they're not using their full breath capacity. This is a problem because if you continue to just use your lungs, you're going to decrease your breath capacity and you're not going to be able to fully get that breath, which, if you think about it in a nervous system standpoint, when you have a shorter breath, that is because your body is ready to get out of there. It's ready to go into that fight or flight mode that is to protect you when you are in a scary situation, which is great if you're trying to run from a tiger or a bear. But where we're in society, that our biggest threat is maybe a car crash. You know what I mean? It's helpful, it's useful, but it's not the side of your nervous system that you want to really be operating from on a day-to-day life. And
so what I get from what you said, when
yeah.
we are breathing, I know this is not the venue for this, but in a nutshell, we say, expand your belly, fill it with air, make sure that you feel it, and then you push everything out.
Exactly. And for those of you that are listening to this podcast, if you take a breath, inhale through your nose and just pull it down your belly and exhale slowly. Notice what that shift is in your body, how you instantly relax, how you instantly come back to this moment. That is the power of the breath. The breath is the only, or one of the only, links that we have to the present moment. That's why it is so important. It is so easy for your thoughts to go to the past and to start thinking about things that happened in the past. It's so easy for your thoughts to go to the future and think about all the things that you need to do and the what ifs. But the breath is the one link that you have naturally in your body that will bring you back to this moment.
I like the way you put it. That reminds me of that story I read, and it's getting personal. With your permission, I can share it. It is also posted. First of all, there is a relationship between you and nature. You always have some beautiful backdrops. Are they natural? That is a short question.
What?
And
That I love
oh,
nature.
those backdrops, it might be close to the beach or it might be to a water view. But that story kept my attention. Your story with your grandmother. You grew up with your grandmother in New Jersey, and you mentioned her love for vodka tonics. And she was an amazing golfer, and she won several awards and hitting 2 holes in one during her playing. She had the best sense of humor, making you laugh every time you were together. And
Mhm,
around the time that the pandemic started, she started having some issues with her health, but she remained hopeful every day that she will get back to how she used to. You drove her to the doctors, you on errands, you spent time together, and you even cherished every moment you get together with her until her passing early this year. My condolences for that.
thank you.
But the part of the story that I appreciate more is that even if she isn't physically here with you, you felt and you still feel her presence every day. And while your mother and you were cleaning her apartment, you wanted to connect with her again. And
Mhm.
one day, while Bianca, you were there, you put on a Wim Hof's guided breath work video. I would like you to tell us more after I'm done with that story. What is that Wim Hof's guided breath work that I don't know what it is? Because everything that you do, that type of cyclical breathing and sit in meditation after you feel the most connected with the source, with God, and also with the universe. And at the time, it was the best way for you to know how to connect with your that spiritual plane.
Mhm.
You said, and I quote, I called her forward, and when I heard her say, "Hi, honey," the way that she used to, you instantly started crying.
Mhm.
I felt a warm energy, and while I was speaking to her, I was writing down what she was telling me, and you showed us a picture of your journal with the words exactly that happened on 6 January 21. My honey, I love you, and so forth. Now, first of all, that is an amazing story. I like the way you write. Congratulations. You write very simple and you comment words. So what is that Wim video energy connecting you with the spiritual plane?
So Wim Hof breathing, if you've ever heard of the guy that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in a t-shirt and shorts, that's him, or
Uh,
the Iceman. Um, he teaches the cyclical breathing that I've been practicing for around 2 to 3 years now, and I've actually started to incorporate it in the yoga classes. And Axel, he really loves it genuinely. Like he was like, "Wow, I feel so amazing after this," and I noticed whenever I would do that breath work, because it's a cyclical breath, it's like like fully out, fully in, fully out. And then you pause, and then you pause for a minute, hold that breath, and then you exhale. It's a whole process. What it's doing is it's inviting an influx of oxygen into your body. So when you do that type of breath, it could feel like you have a head rush because there's so much oxygen being introduced into your body. That being said, I noticed whenever I would do that breath before I would meditate, I was able to really connect with the, I guess, spiritual side and more of
mhm.
my guides, my ancestors. I was really able to get messages and downloads whenever I was doing that breath. So in my head, I knew that that was one of the best ways that I could reach her and I could talk to her. And it was at her apartment when my mom and I were cleaning it out that I knew I just needed to do that one final thing before we got everything out. And it was very interesting. I mean, I heard her voice. I was crying, and at the end of it, I asked her, I was like, because I listened to the video on YouTube, like the guided video on YouTube. I asked her, can you pick the next video? And it was a video about chakras. And I
Mhm.
didn't at the time, but as time passed, I realized that what she was telling me is to get into Reiki, which is energy healing using the chakras.
So now what is Reiki? You said energy healing using the chakras. That means those are words for me. Teach me.
So the chakras are energy centers in your body. The 7 main are the ones along the spine. Those are the ones that people mostly talk about. And to put it in a more scientific perspective, your chakras are nerve bundles in your spine. So it's not just some woo-woo thing. It is scientifically, biologically ingrained in us that they are energy centers, because your nervous system is like energy. It is energy. So what I'm doing when I do Reiki is I am moving that energy throughout the body again. Sometimes what happens is our chakras are like vortexes. So think of these big circular things, or these circular on our body that are constantly pulling in information from our external environment. When that happens, sometimes things can get blocked. So imagine a river, right? A river, and then a tree falls in that river. It's not going to flow as optimally as before when it didn't have that tree. And then what happens when the water isn't flowing as well? It starts to become stagnant. It starts to become dead. It starts to become filled with bacteria and disease. So from my understanding and from what I've read is that disease actually starts in our energetic body. It starts with a blockage in our energy and in our energetic body. And so what I'm doing when I'm doing Reiki is I'm helping to create more of that flow throughout the body. With the use of my hands and light touch, I'm guiding the energy to, again, move optimally.
That is amazing. Our conversation today with this podcast, my guest, Bianca Procter, she's a yoga instructor. And also, she wants to move ahead with helping you with your innate wisdom, innate energy to you to discover your inner power. And I invite you to follow her. And as I mentioned, you also have a relationship with music. I can see the different programs that you have, the type of music that you're listening to. So how do you pick music with what you're doing?
I always think about what experience I want to curate for the people that are there. Do I want to make a playlist that's a little bit more happy? Do I want to make a playlist that is a little bit more intense, slower? I start with the feeling that I want to give people, and then from there, I find music that aligns with that.
Zen B. And to be a Zen B means something. How did you come with that Zen B.hive?
In all honesty, I got inspiration from my boyfriend. At first it was my name, because Zen Bianca, like Zen B. But as time went on, it turned into something a lot more than just that. It turned into, it's a person that is wanting to heal themselves and help themselves for the greater good. So think of like a bee in a hive, because that's what the whole story is kind of centered around. All of these little worker bees are doing their part to make their community a lot safer and more optimally. They're helping each other by doing their own work. So it's kind of the same thing. If you are doing your own inner work, you are creating a ripple effect and helping and healing everyone around you. So that's kind of...
Now, our next segment will be about you being an entrepreneur. Let's say, yes, okay, we move from you were 14 searching for things, and now you have discovered what you are aiming for, why you are here. And you also understand that this is not only to be an instructor. It seems to me that you are creating a movement.
Yeah.
You are building something to change the world one person at a time within your studio. You give yourself, you provide, you search, you read, you do them first, you experience, and then now you have other people experience. Now there's a business side of everything. You have rent and you have to cover your own expenses. How is business doing?
It's doing very well. It's actually been picking up. And kind of to piggyback on where we left off from how I left the studio, it was my decision.
Sure, sure.
I decided that I wanted to focus on my own business and kind of figure that out. I had no idea what I was doing. I had literally none. I did not know about taxes. I did not know about business entities. I did not know about marketing. I did not know about any sort of strategy. I had no clue what I was doing. But I was open to learning. And so within this past year, I would say like this past year and a half, I really dedicated myself to learning all the different sides of businesses. I took several courses. I found mentors that would help me along with that. And most importantly, I really honed in on what it is that my clients and the people that are supporting me, what they wanted. Because I could think that they need something all I want, but if they are not telling me that they need that, then it's not really what they're looking for and what they want. And I want to be able to create something and hold space for the people that come, that they feel, okay, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I need in this moment.
Now, let's say I have that follower, that person listening to you. Hello, listener, this is for you. And that might be usually my followers or people like myself. I will say uh, adult,
Mm-hmm.
certain age, also be very conservative, and they are not in those big moves that I see you doing. But also, they also my follower right here, my listener, that might be men, a different gender, but they want to be better. They want to feel better. What will you recommend, and how they can get contact with you for your service?
I would definitely recommend that if you are starting the practice, to approach it from a place of curiosity and play. Tap into that inner child that you have within you. Let yourself be bad at things and let yourself fall, because that is ultimately how you have fun in the practice. You're not going to be good at every single pose. You're not going to be good at every moment, and that is okay. So give yourself permission to play around with it and just explore. I actually am launching a new service in February called a Done For You Flow. So it's a customized 30-minute flow with a 10-minute meditation and breath work, journal prompts, and affirmations. So it's customized to your body's needs, whether you want to go deeper in a pose, whether you're looking to kind of aid back pain or strengthen your core, whatever it is you're looking for, it is customized to the client. Because I also recognize that sometimes when you go to a class, you're not, it's very hard for a teacher to speak to every single person that's in there. And so this service, this Done For You Flow service, is kind of like it's like a class mixed with a private session, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yes, it does. And also I can see that you had a class on split coming, and it seems to me you got some students who have been doing some improvements. I
Mhm.
see wow, look at that. The way it was, first of all, for you, Axel is my son, he's the one who introduced me to your program. It seems to me he likes it.
Yeah, he has been so consistent, and just he shows up, and that's the most important thing, because it's not about getting them to a split. It's about getting them to learn to have that relationship with their body and work towards something. Like the goal, I guess you could say, would be splits, but
Mhm.
you learn so much more in the program than just
And I
split.
see that also with a couple of other that you have. So How do you feel when you see this improvement from your students?
Oh my God, it makes me so happy. It makes me so proud because it feels like all the hours that I've put into it, like curating the flows, learning anatomy, everything that I've done is because I've sought out the knowledge for it and taught myself how to do it, whether that be through mentors or whether that be through videos, books. I've always tried to keep my knowledge up to date and sharp because I want to provide the best for the people that come to me. So it makes me really happy to see that because it feels like everything that I'm doing is paying off and that it's actually progressing and there's tangible results that you see.
Congratulations. If you are listening to this podcast, or if you are watching this, I invite you to visit BiancaProcter.com. This is the website where you will find more information how to have access to Bianca, the courses, and what she's doing. Once again, this is BiancaProcter.com. And more, you can go on Instagram and follow her right now. You can go and follow her Instagram right now. And Bianca, I can't wait to see you 20 years from now. How do you see Bianca Zen be 20 years from now? I always tell people to put in perspective.
Yeah.
20
Uh,
years from now, what would you like to see?
20 years from now, I would like to see a community of people that are striving to be better and striving to put the work in to heal themselves and understand themselves and not just hold space for themselves, but also learn how to hold space for other people. Because I feel as though sometimes in our society, when a person gets emotional or a person is going through something, it's very easy for others to run away from it because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't have the tools to deal with it and hold space for that person. And I want to be able to show people that, you can hold space and love love your neighbor, love the person that's next to you for who they are, all the different sides of themselves, and be able to just, like I said, hold space for their healing as well as your own.
Thank you very much. Next time in next podcast, we hope to have a conversation about the food that you eat, the travel that you do, the dreams that you hold, and also your own idiosyncrasies, whatever you want to share,
Yeah.
because the more we talk, the better we understand you. And through your stories, you give us an opportunity to discover our own self. Thank you, Bianca Procter, to have responded to my call. Once again, this is our conversation with Roosevelt Jean-Francois. And my
Thank
guest today, Bianca Procter, your last word.
thank you so much for having me. And I guess one last piece of advice I could give people is to just let yourself feel what you're feeling. Let yourself experience what you're experiencing instead of repressing it, because when you repress what you are going through, it just is going to bottle up and turn into a lot of stress that is unnecessary. But thank you again so much for having me, and it was such an honor and such a pleasure to be on this podcast. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you to the listeners for listening as well. I really do appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for this.
Likewise, once again, you have a blessed day and be well, and I'll see you next.
Bye.